G'day guys, if you like huge tanks, if you like tanks that dominate on the battlefield, if you like tanks that make an appearance and a presence on the battlefield, then you will like the TOG II. This tank is absolutely wonderful in one way and completely horrific in a plethora of other ways. Why do I like this tank so much? Well, stick around guys and I'll tell you exactly why, but for now let's have a look at the in-game stats of this tank and see exactly why this tank, well, it's one of the original premium tanks which was a bit worse than its competition really. So here I have the TOG II up against the Churchill 7, the heavy tank number 6, which is the other premium heavy tank available in store right now, although the TOG II isn't, but we'll get onto that a bit later, and the KV-85, the Soviet tier 6 heavy tank. And I should mention that the Churchill 7 is the heavy tank of tier 6 for the UK or British. I think it's the UK nation. It says right here, doesn't it? Right in front of my face. Anyway, the DPM of the TOG II is worse than the other ones by quite a significant margin actually, looking at about 200 DPM worse than even well, about 100 less than the heavy tank number 6. So although it is a bit worse, I guess it's not terrible, but it's not great either. It does have 1800. When you compare it to its British counterpart, non-premium counterpart, it does have quite significantly less. So that is something you do have to note, although it isn't, I guess it isn't much of a game changer. It's not horrific. It's still pretty decent, especially for tier 6. Penetration is 171 millimeters. That is really, really good. You're not really going to have to spend a lot of premium rounds, which if you want to use this tank as a money-maker tank, which I would probably stick to tier 8s for that, but if you want to use this as a money-making premium tank, then you don't have to fire premium rounds really too often at all, unless you see the all-new, completely balanced tier 8 heavy tanks that you can currently buy in the premium gaming shop. Having said that, is still better, for instance, than the Churchill 7 and much better than the heavy tank number 6 at 145 millimeters. So it is something that you can use to your advantage in the game, mainly for credit's sake. Damage wise, only 150 damage per hit, so it doesn't hit very hard, but it does hit quite often. 12 rounds per minute. That is pretty good. It's not amazing, but it is pretty good. So you are able to get in shot after shot and kind of wean down the hit points of your enemies, especially if they shoot you once and then you are able just to repetitively shoot them. For example, if you meet a KV-85, you should be able to get in 2 shots for every 1 shot that KV-85 gets into you. So you should be able to rack up, on average, 300 damage rather than 250. So this tank is pretty good at sustained damage, but isn't that great at trading hits, because really it's not a very high damage, as 150 isn't great. It does also have a pretty average shell velocity of 884 meters per second. It is better than the Churchill and the heavy tank number 6, but isn't quite as good as the KV-85. But 884 meters per second will just mean that you really have to lead your shots. You can't rely on being able to zoom and hit them if they're moving all the time. You're going to have to aim a little bit ahead of them, and then you should be right. Now, its potential damage is 21,600, which is absolutely fantastic. You never have to worry about running out of ammunition. You're just not going to, or at least it's very, very unlikely that you're going to. The Churchill 7 has very poor compared to this, and the KV-85 very poor. Heavy tank number 6 does have 20,000, so that is also really good. But yeah, you're never gonna have to worry about running out of ammunition. It means you can take in lots of different HE rounds or APCR rounds in this tank, which is really, really good, especially if it just makes you feel a little bit more secure when you're playing this tank. Now, aim time is okay. It's pretty average. It's not bad. It's 2.3 seconds. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. However, its dispersion at 0.36 is also quite average, and its dispersion while moving and while the tank and turret are traversing is quite poor. It's overall, it's pretty much just as bad gun handling as the KV-85. Not quite as bad aim time, but you are going to hit a lot of shots into the ground, or it's going to go not where you want it to go. Especially if you snapshot, you need to have time to aim in a little bit. Luckily, this tank is so slow that the bloom doesn't ever get too huge, but you do need to be wary about that. It's certainly worse than the Churchill 7 in terms of gun handling, and they do have pretty similar guns. So there's something you've got to worry about. Now, its gun elevation is best, probably best in class at 20 degrees. So it is pretty good at being able to shoot upwards and downwards, but its gun depression as well, I should say, and its gun depression as well, is pretty good, damn good at 10 degrees. If we have a look at the TOG here, we can see in this visual model here that you can get pretty good gun depression pretty much all around, except for at the back, where you will drop off to 5 degrees, which will occur at the back of the tank. And don't think that you're not going to have to use your turret quite often as the main movement of this tank. I mean, you're going to have to shoot over the back a lot in this tank, you'll find out, because it's so slow, but we will get onto that in just one moment. Now, its mobility is where this tank is god awful, horrifically bad. And if you thought the Churchill 7 was bad, you got another thing coming. The mobility of this tank, it goes 14 kilometers per hour forward. Horrific. It's slower than the T95, the Mouse, you name it. I think this is the slowest tank in the game. Reverse speed of 7 degrees. You might as well not even have a reverse gear. I mean, it barely even moves. It weighs a lot and only has a 600 horsepower engine, meaning its power to weight ratio is 7.38, worse than every other tank in this comparison by a long shot. You know, the KV-85 pretty much has double the mobility, especially when you factor in the fact that it has really bad, well, not really bad, but just poor ground resistances, which does not help its power to weight ratio. It's worst, yeah, pretty much worse in this comparison. The only worst one is the heavy tank number 6, but even so, with these ground resistance, it's still a lot faster, especially considering it has a much better forward speed. Not that it's going to reach it, but it's going to get closer to it than 14 degrees that this is maxed out at, and you will reach the 14 kilometer per hour speed limit. I guess that's something that you can look forward to, but you're not going any faster than that. Maybe down a hill you go 16 kilometers per hour if you're really lucky. So that's really, really poor. Its turret traverse is actually the best out of all these tanks here at 32 degrees per second, which is actually not terrible at all. But then look at its tank traverse. It's 20 degrees per second. And look how big it is. I mean, if you're trying to traverse, you're moving like that, but your turret's going around like this, and then you're just moving like this. It's so frustrating. The amount of movement that this turret will do from here to here, the amount of times you're going to move your turret around, right? Going, let's say it's measured that in meters, the circumference is what, 10 meters or so. You're going to move more meters with your turret than you will with your tank. It is really quite depressing and means that you just can't stop in this tank, which adds further weight to why these gun handling dispersions are really quite poor, because you need good gun handling. At least if you're going to be really slow, have better gun handling than the rest of the competition, so you can at least hit things, and you can hit things in this tank, but this gun handling, you know, if it was better, then considering you're always moving in this tank, you know, it really does affect the gun handling in this tank. Now, its armor, it's got really trollish armor. Its armor is not good. The best armor it has is 114 millimeters, which sounds good, but it's completely flat. But like the IS-3, you just get bounces for really no great reason. You get all these bounces off the side. The armor isn't actually that thick at 76 millimeters, but when you angle like this, even like that, you know, you're going to get a lot of bounces when they hit the back, maybe if they hit up front, but it does have quite trollish armor, so its armor is actually okay. You will get some bounces off it, but don't rely on it, especially if an enemy gets you on your side, and well, then they're going to be able to go through it. And when you move this slowly, you're just going to get absolutely destroyed. And also look at the armor at the top, massive arty magnet. Artillery love the TOG, and they're going to go straight through it and really ruin your day. The best thing about this tank, and pretty much the only thing that's good about this tank, is its health. It has 1400 hit points, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, it's almost doubled out of the KV-85. I think it's got the same health as, or just less than, a Tiger 1 tier 7, which is renowned for having a lot of health. So you've got a lot of health in this tank. You take a lot of hits, but that's what you need to do. You're pretty much a money-making magnet for the other team. They're going to get lots of experience from you and lots of credits for you, because they're going to get so much damage numbers out of your tank. It's almost quite hilarious. Speaking of hilarious, this is not hilarious. It's got a 360 meter view range. It's poor, it's bad, it's no good. Having said that, you don't really have to worry about the competition having better, because it really doesn't have that great of a view range. Also, another thing to note is it does catch fire quite often. a bit frustrating. Not the worst, you know, the Churchill is much worse at 20%, but at 15%, it does catch fire. I've noticed anyway quite often. Obviously it varies. So if they hit your engine, you've got a 15% chance of combusting spontaneously. And also the shell cost, again, this is a pretty good money maker for tier 6, but it's not great. Remember, it is a tier 6. Okay, don't get ahead of yourselves. This isn't a tier 8 premium tank. It's not amazing. So after hearing all of these things, seeing that it's really not a great tank, and this is reflected, by the way, in the statistics. We look at VB Addict here, we can see it only has a 48.6% win rate. A balanced tank is about a 50% win rate, so this could do with a little bit of buffing, really. I mean, it could. We've had a look at the stats. It is pretty terrible. Very slow. Very frustrating to play. So how about we go back into the garage, and I'll tell you exactly why I and so many others, oops, I just dropped my microphone, why I and so many other players actually love this pretty terrible tank. Isn't she just beautiful? Absolutely stunning. She's a voluptuous, lovely, larger lady, and there's nothing wrong with her at all. I mean, if nothing else, this is a good looking tank. Also, it's absolutely hilarious looking. I mean, I'm speechless. I can't say anything because it's that funny that people buy it. I mean, this is why people have bought it, because it's not a good tank, it's just a funny looking tank, and it's an odd tank, and it's a quirky tank, and that's why people buy the TOG. Also, my favorite thing about this tank is not how it plays, because I actually hate how it plays. It's terrible. But it kind of tightens up the community in the sense that when you're playing, you're always going to have people yelling TOG or boat TOG or whatever, and it's such a funny tank that it kind of livens the spirit of the game. I mean, while the tanks at the best of time, as I'm sure you know, is very frustrating, but playing the TOG, it really is something that kind of, even though you don't play that great usually in it, it's something that is just so funny that and it brings a community together, and that's just the aspect I like about it. Now, having a quick look in the game itself, I don't really have modules on this tank, or equipment on this tank I should say, because I don't play it enough and I don't want to spend my credits. I don't already struggle to make credits as it is. But if I were to completely load it out, I would keep the medium caliber tank gun rammer because it does have pretty poor DPM, and you want to kind of have the 10% advantage in DPM that this gives you. I would also put a improved vents on it, because that adds 5% skills to all of these players. All of these crew members, and also a super heavy spore liner. Although it is really expensive, I would invest in it because, as we saw in that model, it's got such flat, huge amount of real estate that artillery can drop shells onto and ruin your day, and it just reduces the effect of pretty much explosives. And although it will make your tank heavier and slower, it is, I think it is pretty vital in order to be able to play this game without wanting to throw your keyboard at the wall because you're getting pummeled by artillery. Now, also talking about crew members, it isn't a great crew trainer. I think in the tier 10 you have 4 crew members. In the Black Prince, for instance, I think you have 5, and you have 6 here. So most of the crew training is, if you've got the other tanks, is probably going to go to the two crew members who have less training than the other tanks. So that is something you need to be wary about. But you know, in the end, you don't buy this for the crew training. You buy it for, as I said, the kind of hilarity of the tank and the way it looks. You don't get it for the way it plays or what it trains or how much money it makes. In the end, you want it because you like the way it looks and you like the kind of effect that it has on the community. Alright guys, so enough droning on. Let's have a look at some gameplay. Alright guys, so here we are on Overlord. We have Funny Nuts 63, which I'm going to call Funny for the rest of this replay, playing in his TOG II, and amazingly there's another TOG II on his team which isn't his platoon member. It's just another TOG, which is absolutely incredible. So we have Funny Nuts here, or Funny as I said I would say, powering on Overlord. Now he has claimed this to be the best TOG replay ever. So we're about to find out if that's true. So as you can see, this tank is so slow. It's terrible. I mean, I might even have to just have a cup of coffee or go to the bathroom while we wait for this TOG to finally get to where it needs to go, because right now it's going very, very slowly. It is taking up an offensive position at his own pace, because you don't tell the TOG when to go or how fast to go. It's going at his own pace. It's getting to where he needs to go. He is in a tier 7 matchup, I should mention as well. So it is about an average matchup for him to get into. He's got quite a few, tier 6 tanks on his team. I'm just so flabbergasted with how slow this tank is. I've completely forgotten. I haven't played the TOG in a while. Gosh, look how slow it is. Now you can see already that the game is moving relatively fast considering how big this map is. He is going straight through the middle, powering through, following Sir Mark Lance in his TOG. Together, you have an unstoppable force of warships. This Chinu made a very big mistake, and this should show just how good the rate of fire on this tank is. He does take a shot though, takes another shot, but it doesn't really matter when you got 1400 hit points like the TOG does. I mean, it's absolutely, it's quite preposterous. Preposterous. I don't know how to pronounce that word. That's a new word I'm gonna have to learn. So far, scores are even. 2 tanks down on each team. You can see also that Funny has a camouflage on his tank, because the TOG clearly has a very good camouflage rate. It does not, by the way, in case you were wondering, as I'm sure you could probably tell. So here we go. Funny's coming up on a Churchill, which has pretty good armor, and he's just throwing shells in. Now you can see that even the dispersion on this tank isn't great. He is able to go through the armor quite effectively and on the move as well. So look at that, absolutely fantastic. Will he get another shot in? Yes, he gets another shot in. Of course he gets another shot in. So now Funny is looking around, trying to see exactly where he should go to next. Now the western flank is actually being overrun at the moment, so he is going to try and look over the hill. However, I don't know how that's going to play out, considering that although this does have 10 degrees of gun depression, remember, that is a steep decline. You really don't want to get the TOG falling over there because of its thin nature. If it tips over, and it's so heavy, you're not going to find a tank to pull it back. But never mind that, he's got a T-67 coming right up his ass, so he has to be really, really careful here. And oh my lord, the team has completely fallen around him. I barely even noticed that. Be very, very careful. He gets himself into a wonderful position there, shooting right into the back of the Panzer IV-H, seemingly unknowing that he's being shot, taken out effectively. But oh boy, it's making my heart drop. I don't want to see him fall off the hill. But look at him, he's going down anyway. He's pushing through, he's reaching the fastest speed a TOG has ever gone. It does take some damage, however. It is a heavy tank, and falling on itself isn't that great, but that heavy tank number 6 there, the other premium tank that we compared this to, tier 6 heavy, is also unknowing. He doesn't seem to be paying any attention to the fact that there's a TOG behind him, and he sets him on fire, and that heavy tank is gone. And look at him now, Funny is now completely alone against quite nasty tanks on the enemy team. So we've got T-67 there, very high rate of fire, and very, very fast indeed. If he gets around the side, well, the TOG is really going to struggle here. There's also a French Lefebvre that's a tier 5 premium artillery. The IKV on the enemy team has also seemed to have crashed. He probably fell off the side of the hill as well. Let's have a look if he fell behind. Not quite, I'm not sure where he is, but that is quite funny. But here we go, he's taken out the T-67, now he's shooting at the T-40. He's racked up a lot of damage, almost 3,000 damage. Blocked only one shell. Pretty much every other shell has gone through from the enemy team, however. That T40 is probably shitting bricks right now because Funny still, even though he's lost half his hit points, still has quite a lot of hit points. And Skoda is now shooting heat, but can't quite get through. And now it's Funny against a S51, which could have the 203mm howitzer, I believe, on it, which would be very nasty indeed if it hits and penetrates, especially. We've also got the Lafeur, which shoots every 8 seconds or so, with an average crew, and I think it's a T1 heavy, Tier 5, I believe that's its name, American heavy tank. So let's just see how he's going to go. Might speed it up a little bit, and we also don't know where those, we don't know quite where those artillery are, but he's spotted the heavy. No need to speed it up, look at that. He spotted the T1 heavy. It is on full health, so he does have to be careful. Having said that, it only has 660 hit points, and clearly not a very good player, I don't believe. He's able to track the T1 heavy, keep it in his place, and shoot into the hull at the same time, so really good position there. And he's done 3,715 damage, and he's just farming the damage on this T1 heavy. And look how fast this rate of fire is, but then look how slow it is. Does it make up for its rate of fire? Not really, guys. It's just such a slow tank. Let's speed it up a little bit now. So he's deciding clearly to turn around, and that heading to the enemy base and trying to cap that way will do best. And he's spotted the S51, and he's just putting shots into him, and didn't even need to slow it down. The S51 doesn't stand a chance. Now the S51 didn't have, I don't think, the 203mm. Let's see what the team's saying though at the same time. I do love to see it. Too bad we did not do more help to you, TOG, so at least they're being nice about the fact that they all crumbled around him. But he's on 8 kills. There's just the Lafeur left. It doesn't really stand a chance, unless it caps out, because this tank, you know, I don't think it would make it back to the base in a minute and a half. Now I'm thinking that maybe this replay is on a slower setting, but really it's not. I'm playing at 1 time speed, and it's just that slow, guys. I mean, I can't reiterate enough. Now, Funny is looking for that Lafeur, but that Lafeur could be anywhere, and he really has to make some tough decisions here. Does he defend the base, or does he go and does he try and cap out the base, or does he go and try and find the Lafeur, because he's going to really struggle. No matter really what option he chooses, if he goes back to defend the base, he's not going to be able to really have time, very likely, to go and try and cap out their base. If he tries to look for the Lafeur, good luck. So slow, it could, you know, it's a slow tank itself, but it could get away from it pretty easily. And so look at the comments. Land whale looks good on the beach. I love that. I love that about this tank. That it kind of makes people make funny comments, kind of make fun of it, but it also, like, it's all lighthearted, and it's just stuff you don't see really too often in the World of Tanks chats now, do you? Let's speed it up a little bit now. It's getting a little bit frustrating watching it go 8 kilometers up a hill. It'd be such a shame if it was a draw. But he's going back to look at his base. He's going to try and defend it, and he's found the Tier 5 artillery, French artillery, and he's won the game for his team. And he's so happy, as you can see him saying shit at the end of the game. So now, guys, let's have a look at the post-game stats. You can see he got an Ace Tanker Mastery badge, being in the top 1% of all experience earned for this tank. He's got the Hand of God, Bruiser, Duelist, and Fire for Effect. And he's got 3 epic medals. Let's have a look at them. The Kolobanov's medal for standing alone, against 5 or more enemy tanks or self-propelled guns. Radley Walters medal, awarded if you get 8 or 9 kills in a game. Of course, he got 9 kills. Pascucci's medal for destroying 2 enemy SPGs, a high caliber, and a top gun, which is absolutely fantastic. He's done 4,556 damage in this game. Didn't really block much damage though, as you can see, 115. So remember, that armor isn't actually that amazing. And also, the gun handling in this game was actually pretty good in general. From personal experience and watching other people's replays, you shoot into the ground so much in this tank, it can be really frustrating. But amazingly, he also traveled 1.78 kilometers, which is incredible. It's an incredible feat in this tank. I assure you that, as I'm sure you saw in the replay. So guys, what do I think about this tank? Well, I know it's not a good tank in general. Its stats are pretty bad. The only thing it really has going for it is its hit points. Having said that, I just like the way that this tank really kind of brings in the community. It means that people talk to each other positively, you know, through yelling TOG and whatever, but you know, there's still positive communication, and I like the way it looks. It's a hilarious tank, and you know, its comical nature, not so much like the Nameless being a really weird looking tank, but this is a weird looking but real tank, and I just think it's cool. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that it is something that, although it isn't a great tank, is a novelty. So although it's not available to purchase now, I don't think, it depends where you're living as well, but it was removed from the premium store. But if you can purchase it, I would say go for it. I just think it's a novelty tank, as long as it's not too expensive, you know. Don't do anything ridiculous, but I think that if you want something that's novelty, if you like to collect tanks, then this is really a good tank to have in your garage. So thank you guys so much. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, then give it a dislike, but tell me why you didn't like it. And subscribe if you want to see more similar content. And also, if you like health and fitness content, you can follow me on my Instagram, which I'll leave down in the description below. So thanks guys so much, and see you next time.